She was 8 months pregnant, kicked out barefoot into the storm by her stepmother. But that baby isn't just a child, it's $20 million. Will Emily fight back, or has she lost everything? What happened next will shock the entire world forever. The night was relentless, rain pouring in sheets across Beverly Hills as 19-year-old Emily Carter stumbled barefoot through the puddles, her stomach swollen with 6 months of pregnancy and her phone clutched tightly in her hand, the only connection to the outside world, the only lifeline she had left. The mansion behind her, gleaming in its $8 million grandeur, now felt like a prison she had been unceremoniously expelled from, a place that had once promised safety but had turned cold and cruel in an instant. Standing in the doorway, arms crossed, her stepmother, Victoria Langston, looked down at her with a mixture of disdain and triumph, her eyes hard and unyielding, as if every drop of rain that soaked Emily were somehow her doing, a reflection of her own satisfaction in asserting control. "You think you can trap my son with a baby? Get out! You're not welcome here," Victoria said, her voice slicing through the storm like a whip, final and merciless. Emily's lips trembled, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, I have nowhere to go." The words barely forming through the choke of fear, desperation, and heartbreak that squeezed her chest. But Victoria had already made up her mind, and the sound of the door slamming shut behind her echoed like a thunderclap, reverberating into Emily's very soul, signaling not only her physical expulsion, but the crushing weight of betrayal she felt from the woman who was supposed to guide and protect her in a family she had once thought she belonged to. The neighbors peered from their windows, hesitant, some mouths open in shock, some frozen in helpless silence, witnessing the young girl, drenched and trembling, cast into the storm with no one to turn to, unable or unwilling to intervene, caught between compassion and fear of crossing a woman as formidable as Victoria. But what they didn't know, what none of them could have imagined in those tense, rain-swept moments, was that the child growing inside Emily wasn't just any child. Every heartbeat, every small movement of that unborn baby carried a weight far beyond Emily's understanding in the moment, a secret she was too young, too scared, and too weary to comprehend. That baby was the key, an invisible key to a fortune worth $20 million, a fortune that had been meticulously planned by her father, one that Victoria, in her arrogance and cruelty, had completely failed to recognize, failed to protect, failed even to anticipate as she carried out her act of heartless expulsion. And in that storm, with the wind howling through the trees and the rain soaking her to the bone, Emily's feet slipping over the slick pavement, she was unaware that every teardrop she shed, every shiver of cold and fear that ran through her body, was a step closer to the turning point in a story she had no idea she was at the center of. Victoria had unknowingly thrown away the single person who could unlock the intricate web of her husband's plans, the person whose existence and perseverance would one day shift the power, redirect the fortune, and expose the depth of Victoria's folly. In that moment, Emily's mind was a storm as chaotic as the weather around her, spinning with questions, doubts, and the gnawing sense of abandonment. Yet, somewhere deep within, a spark of resilience flickered, barely noticeable against the darkness, barely audible against the roar of the thunder, but enough to keep her moving forward, enough to carry her through the pain, the shock, and the immediate sense of injustice. Every step through the wet streets, every shiver from the cold rain was a reminder that she had been underestimated, that the cruelty of one person could never extinguish the strength of another, and that the life growing within her was more than just a new beginning. It was a powerful, unstoppable force that could, if nurtured and protected, change the course of a family, rewrite the rules, and reveal truths that had been hidden behind wealth, deception, and pride. That night, Emily Carter was not just a young woman cast out into the storm. She was a pivotal player in a story of betrayal and inheritance, of secrets and consequences, of the human heart tested by greed and vindictiveness. And as she trudged forward, soaked,
Shivering, but still holding on to her lifeline, the rain around her seemed almost to whisper of the trials ahead, of the justice that was waiting, quietly, patiently, like the calm at the eye of the storm. And the world was about to witness that even in the darkest, coldest nights, a young woman and the child she carried could hold the power to rewrite the destinies of those who thought they held all the control.
3 days after the stormy night that had changed Emily Carter's life forever, Charles Langston, Emily's father, and the man whose presence had always lingered in the mansion, even in absence, suffered a massive stroke, leaving the household in shock, and in an instant altering the course of events in ways no one could have predicted. He never woke up, and the air in the Langston mansion grew heavy with tension, whispered speculations, and the cold reality of mortality, as family members and close acquaintances gathered under one roof, their faces a mixture of sorrow, anxiety, and the unspoken calculations that always accompany wealth. Everyone expected that Victoria, the stepmother who had orchestrated Emily's expulsion with such ruthless efficiency, would naturally inherit the entire fortune, stepping into the role of the matriarch with the luxury, control, and influence that came with millions in estates, stocks, and trusts. But the reading of the will, that ceremonial moment which always promised clarity, instead shattered assumptions and sent shockwaves through every person in a room. The lawyer, a composed man in a dark suit, cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses as he opened the thick leather-bound folder that contained Charles's final wishes, the will that would decide who would inherit what, who would rise and who would be left empty-handed. And the silence in the room deepened, a tense vacuum waiting for the revelation. Charles changed his will 2 weeks before his death, the lawyer began, his voice steady yet deliberate, ensuring that every word carried the weight it deserved. The entire estate, homes, stocks, trusts, goes to his daughter, Emily, but only if she remains part of the family home until the birth of her child. If she's disowned or removed, the fortune passes to a charitable trust, forever. The words hung in the air, slicing through the room with the precision of a knife, leaving jaws dropped, eyes wide, and hearts racing as the reality of the conditions settled over everyone like a heavy fog. Victoria's face, once confident and commanding, drained of color in an instant, pale as the paper the lawyer held, her lips parting in disbelief as she stammered, "She's not even blood!" The room seemed to constrict around her, the air thick with tension, murmurs rippling through the gathered witnesses. But the lawyer's gaze was unwavering, and he raised a hand to silence the whispers before continuing. "She is. DNA test from 10 years ago proved it. Charles was her real father. You've been raising your husband's daughter, and just threw her out." The words reverberated through the mansion, echoing off the marble floors, the gilded walls, and the high ceilings, each syllable a dagger to Victoria's pride, and a revelation of the intricate planning her husband had undertaken, unseen, unspoken, and utterly decisive. Shock rippled through the room. Some gasped, some pressed their hands to their mouths, and some sank into chairs, unable to process the enormity of what had just been revealed. Every glance turned to Emily, who was still trying to comprehend the storm she had endured outside and the life-altering twist that had now placed her at the center of unimaginable wealth and opportunity. The fortune that Victoria had assumed was hers by virtue of manipulation, control, and sheer audacity was now tethered entirely to Emily's continued presence and resilience, hinging on her ability to stay connected to the home, to survive, and to protect the unborn child who unknowingly held the key to millions. Victoria's mind raced, a chaotic swirl of disbelief, panic, and desperation as she realized the extent of her miscalculation and the profound consequences of her cruelty. The actions she had taken in arrogance and ignorance now revealing the vast gap between what she assumed she controlled and the reality dictated by Charles's foresight. Meanwhile, Emily, standing quietly yet with an unspoken strength,
began to understand the magnitude of her position, the fortune that awaited her, and the power she now held simply by existing, by enduring, and by having survived the betrayal and the storm. In that room, moments stretched, time seemed to freeze, and the air itself vibrated with the tension between what was lost, what was gained, and the shocking twist that would alter the lives of everyone present forever. This was not merely the reading of a will, it was the unveiling of secrets, the exposure of truths long hidden, and the dramatic reversal of fortune that would test relationships, reveal character, and define the legacies of all involved. And as the murmurs subsided and eyes met eyes, it became clear that nothing in the Langston mansion, nor in the lives of Emily and Victoria, would ever be the same again.
Panic consumed Victoria Langston, her mind spinning in a whirlwind of fear, greed, and disbelief as she sped through the rain-soaked streets of Beverly Hills, the city lights reflecting off puddles like shards of broken glass. Each turn of the wheel a frantic attempt to reclaim control over a situation that was rapidly slipping through her fingers. She searched every possible refuge, from shelters to hospitals, bus stations to quiet alleyways, her eyes scanning faces, her heart hammering, desperate to find Emily Carter, the young woman who had disappeared without a trace and who, unbeknownst to her, now held the key to a fortune she had so arrogantly assumed was hers to claim. Emily, meanwhile, was a world away from the chaos Victoria had unleashed, taken in by a kind and compassionate nurse at a women's clinic, someone who offered her warmth, a bed, food, and a sense of safety for the first time since being cast out into the storm. Emily had no idea about the will, no inkling of the fortune her father had left, and was still unaware of her true parentage, the intricate secrets that had been kept from her all her life, and the staggering wealth that her mere presence and perseverance now represented. But Victoria, unwilling to accept defeat, escalated her efforts, hiring a private investigator with strict instructions to track every lead, to dig into every corner of the city where Emily might have sought refuge, and offering a $50,000 reward to anyone who could provide information about the girl's whereabouts, a sum that immediately attracted attention, whispers, and a surge of opportunists eager to cash in. All while Victoria manipulated the media, going on local news channels, putting on a facade of concern, portraying herself as a desperate, worried stepmother searching for her, quote, missing stepdaughter, hiding the reality of her motives behind a mask of sympathy and fear. Yet, in the midst of all her schemes, one person saw through the deception, one person who refused to be manipulated or silenced. Mark, the gardener who would witness the entire horrifying expulsion firsthand, standing in the rain, camera phone in hand, recording every moment as Emily had been thrown out into the storm, capturing the shock, the desperation, and the cruelty in every frame. Knowing that the truth must be preserved, knowing that it had to come to light, and refusing to let Victoria's web of lies and manipulation obscure what really happened. As Victoria's car cut through the city streets, the tension building with every passing minute, she could feel the weight of her mistakes pressing down on her, the realization that she had underestimated Emily's resilience, that the one she had deemed powerless could at any moment expose her, challenge her, and overturn all of her carefully constructed plans. Mark's footage, safely stored on his phone, became an invisible weapon, a silent testimony of the injustice, the betrayal, and the audacity of a woman who thought she controlled fate itself. While Emily, exhausted, confused, and still processing the traumatic events that had thrown her life into disarray, remained unaware of the storm of schemes being waged around her, relying instead on the kindness of strangers, the protective shelter of the nurse, and her own inner strength to navigate a world that had suddenly become both terrifying and unpredictable. Every step Victoria took, every lead she pursued, and every broadcast of her feigned concern only increased the tension, only heightened the stakes, as Mark silently prepared for the moment when he would reveal the truth, a moment that would not only shock Victoria, but captivate anyone who learned the story, highlighting the stark contrast between cruelty and kindness, deception and honesty, power and resilience, and reinforcing the dramatic reality that no amount of wealth, scheming, or arrogance could ever erase the consequences of one's actions or the power of the truth. In this night of relentless pursuit, hidden cameras, and unrelenting tension, the stage was set for a collision of motives, a reckoning of hearts, and a suspenseful unfolding of events that would grip every observer, keeping them on the edge of their seats, waiting for the inevitable moment when justice, exposure, and the unexpected twists of fate would converge to reveal that the seemingly powerless, the overlooked, and the underestimated could hold the keys to victory, truth, and fortune in ways that no one, not even Victoria, could have foreseen. And as the night stretched on, rain still falling, headlights cutting through darkness, and the city holding its breath, the chase had begun in earnest, setting the scene for a dramatic climax that would change everything. Victoria Langston, once the commanding presence of a luxurious Beverly Hills mansion, was now completely undone. Disowned by her surviving son, a young man who had witnessed the cruelty, the deceit, and the manipulations of his mother, and who, with righteous indignation, called her actions evil, cutting her off from the family she had believed she could control, and leaving her isolated in a world she had always taken for granted. The mansion, once gleaming with wealth and power, was seized, its doors now closed to her, the sprawling halls echoing only with the memories of her failed schemes. The luxury cars she had flaunted were repossessed, stripped away one by one like trophies reclaimed by justice, and even her credit cards were canceled, accounts tied irrevocably to Charles's name, leaving her stripped of the financial freedom she had once wielded with arrogance and entitlement.
On a quiet Tuesday morning, with sunlight filtering gently through the clinic windows and the soft hum of machines providing a steady rhythm, Emily Carter brought a new life into the world, giving birth to a healthy, perfect baby girl she named Lily. Her body trembling with exhaustion, relief, and an overwhelming rush of emotions she had never imagined she would feel all at once. The pain and terror of the past nights, the storm, the betrayal, the frantic searches, the cold, the rain, and the uncertainty seemed to dissolve for a fleeting moment as she held her daughter, feeling the tiny heartbeat against her chest and knowing that this small life was not only her own miracle, but the living key to a fortune that had been hidden from her, a future she had never anticipated, and a dramatic twist of fate that would shake the world she had been thrust into.
At that exact moment, thousands of miles away, Mark, the gardener who had watched Emily get kicked out into the storm and who had secretly captured the entire ordeal on his phone, made a choice that would forever alter the course of public perception, justice, and accountability. He uploaded the video online, a raw and unflinching testament to Victoria Langston's cruelty, titling it, "Stepmother Kicks Pregnant Girl into Rain, Family Fortune at Stake," a headline crafted to shock, to expose, and to demand attention, knowing full well that the content was both undeniable evidence and the compelling story that no one could ignore. Within minutes, the video went viral, spreading like wildfire across social media platforms, shared, commented on, and reacted to by thousands of viewers who could not believe the audacity and cruelty displayed, who were captivated by Emily's resilience, and who were united in outrage, empathy, and fascination, resulting in #JusticeForEmily trending nationwide, the hashtag appearing on every trending page, every news outlet, and every digital screen where stories of injustice and triumph captured attention. News vans descended upon the clinic, cameras flashing, microphones extended, journalists calling out questions and trying to get a statement from anyone associated with the young mother, the chaos outside contrasting sharply with the calm and exhaustion inside as Emily held Lily in her arms, still processing the magnitude of what had just happened, unaware that her moment of personal victory and relief had become a global spectacle, that the world was watching, and that her life, and the fortune she was now connected to, was about to change forever. And then, as if scripted by fate itself, the lawyer arrived, a figure of authority and resolution amidst the emotional storm, carrying a folder that contained the key to Emily's future, a legal confirmation that the trials, the pain, and the endurance of recent days were not in vain. He handed it to her with steady hands, his voice calm but carrying the weight of finality and relief as he said, "You've met the conditions of the will. The $20 million estate is legally yours." The words sank in slowly, a mixture of disbelief, gratitude, and overwhelming emotion flooding Emily's senses, tears welling in her eyes and spilling down her cheeks as the reality of her situation struck her in waves, each one heavier and more profound than the last. She clutched Lily closer, feeling the warmth and life of her daughter, and finally allowing herself to release the pent-up anguish, the fear, and the hope she had held on to for so long. And through the sobs that shook her body, she whispered, "I didn't want money. I just wanted a family." The simplicity and honesty of her words cutting through the noise, the chaos, and the drama, resonating with anyone who heard them, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the enduring power of love over greed, and the truth that sometimes the greatest victories are not measured in wealth alone, but in connection, compassion, and the restoration of dignity and justice. The moment was electric, a collision of raw human emotion, viral fame, legal triumph, and poetic justice, as the world watched Emily, a young mother who had been wronged and abandoned, emerge triumphant. Her tears not only a reflection of relief, but a symbol of endurance, hope, and the extraordinary ways in which courage, kindness, and perseverance can change lives, alter destinies, and finally, after so much turmoil, bring justice to those who were once powerless, proving that the truth, once revealed, has the power to transform everything in an instant.
Forced to confront the consequences of her actions, Victoria ended up in a tiny, modest apartment in Inglewood, a stark contrast to the opulence she had once commanded, staring at the walls that now contained none of the grandeur or privilege she had assumed was hers by right, watching on television and social media interviews of Emily, the young woman she had cruelly cast into the rain, who had now become a viral symbol of resilience, strength, and justice, using the fortune she had rightfully inherited not for personal indulgence, but to open a shelter for pregnant teens, offering them safety, compassion, and hope in a world that had not always been kind to them. Day after day, Victoria sat in that small apartment, unable to escape the sight of Emily's triumph, the gentle, radiant way she cradled baby Lily in her arms, the way her eyes shone with gratitude, determination, and the quiet joy of a woman who had endured unimaginable hardship and emerged victorious. Her success measured not merely in wealth, but in the lives she was now changing, the love she was spreading, and the poetic justice that had been delivered in full measure.
Meanwhile, the world outside buzzed with admiration for Emily, with viral clips, hashtags, and news stories amplifying her story, turning her into a symbol that resonated far beyond the confines of the mansion, far beyond the streets of Beverly Hills, into living rooms, social media feeds, and hearts across the nation. A testament to the idea that cruelty, no matter how powerful, can be undone by resilience, integrity, and the unassailable power of doing the right thing. And then came the final scene, the culmination of months of suspense, betrayal, endurance, and ultimate justice. Emily, standing in front of the very same mansion that had once been the stage of her suffering, now hers in every sense of the word, holding baby Lily tightly against her chest, the morning sun casting a golden glow across the walls and gates, a serene yet triumphant presence that embodied the journey from despair to empowerment, from abandonment to family, from helplessness to authority. Turning slowly to the camera, her gaze steady, her voice gentle yet filled with the weight of truth and experience as she said, "No one should ever be thrown away, because you never know whose love will save a family." Words that echoed far beyond the walls, words that resonated with anyone who had ever felt powerless, betrayed, or overlooked. A universal message of hope, endurance, and justice delivered with the quiet power of lived experience. Fade to black, and text appeared on the screen, bold and undeniable,
encapsulating the moral, the climax, and the poetic resolution of the saga. The truth doesn't always win, but sometimes it gets $20 million, leaving viewers with a lasting impression of the intertwining of justice, karma, and human resilience. A story that had traversed rage, fear, suspense, and tears, and ending with the satisfaction of a villain exposed, a hero vindicated, and the world reminded once again that compassion, courage, and integrity can overcome even the most entrenched cruelty, leaving the audience cheering, inspired, and profoundly moved.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe my channel, and also share this video with your family and friends. Let's see the view of weather looking so great. There are many clouds in the sky because today weather lives like enjoyable, and I make video for you. If this video give you a lesson, please like and share this video with your family and friends because they give lesson from my video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.